Hey guys, so today we are going to go over the basics of creating a resume. So if you're on the Walsh website, the first thing that we're going to do is go to the Career Center page. So you can just scroll down to Experiential Learning and then scroll all the way down to Career Readiness and Development and then scroll down one more time to Resources. So once you're on the Resources page, this is the page that students have access to, and it has a whole bunch of resources that are great for students for reference. So it has information on the cover letter, the follow-up, the interview. We're actually going to click on the resume. And so with this is a PDF document of everything you need to know about the resume. So it kind of goes through what's expected in a resume, how it's a one-page document, has bullet points, the general formatting, the content, mistakes to avoid, the action verbs with it. And then it actually has sample resumes here in the back. So this is a nice guide we tell students to go to when creating their resumes to start out. So now we're going to switch over to a template that I actually already kind of made up. So with this template, we can just kind of go through each section of the resume and just talk about it more in depth. So the top of a resume should have your contact information. That includes your name, your address, your phone number, and your email address. That way employers know how to get a hold of you. The first section at the top of your resume should be your education. Employers want to know where you got your degree. So it's always good to list that first. So you can kind of go through and list the school that you're in, always list the university, your Bachelor of Arts or Science degree, whatever it is, and then you always want to put expected graduation date. Then you always want to list in this section too your major and your minor. So let's say we're minoring in economics. And typically we tell students that if you have above a 3.0 to put that on the resume as well. So we're just going to put a 3.5 for now. So the next sections kind of vary depending on what you want to kind of portray to your employer. So if you want to list your honors and awards, you can definitely do that. That's what we're going to go over next. So in terms of honors and awards, if you're in the Bluen program, for example, or the honors program, or if you're in the honor societies for each school, or if you made Dean's List, you can actually write out the dates that you've made Dean's List. So let's say fall of 2016 and spring 2018. You do something along those lines. Obviously, I have my international experiences here, but if you've been on any global learning trips and you want to specifically state international experience up here, you can do that as well, or just put it up in your education. You always want to kind of have a brief description of what you did on your international experiences. So for Bluen's, for example, it's a 4-year scholarship program focused on the study of food, hunger, and sustainability. So you can write anything along those lines and just kind of talk about where you went, for how long. That way employers know where you've been outside the country. So the next section is your work experience. So for this section, I just put that I was a finance intern within the finance department at Walsh University. And then you always want to have 2 to 3 bullet points per experience that you've had. So when coming up with bullet points, you always want to start off with an action verb and then kind of state specific duties that you did at that specific experience. So for this experience, I put prepared and entered journal entries related to transactions such as petty cash and department transfers. And then I also tagged and entered fixed assets for the fiscal year that needed to be capitalized. So if you're having trouble coming up with bullet points, one website that we tell students to go to is ONET. So if you just type in ONET online, you can just type in any job. So let's do cashier, for example. Hit enter, and then it'll kind of bring up the daily tasks that a cashier typically does. So you can kind of use these as a guide to creating bullet points if you're having trouble with it. So this is a great resource we tell students to go to. So the next section is your volunteer experience. So with each of these sections, with work experience, with volunteer experience, it's always good to have 2 to 3 kind of experiences listed out, but you always want to keep it to one page. So just check your margins, make sure you're all fitting that information on that one page, but also listing as much experience as you can to an employer based on that job description. So for your volunteer section, just put experiences that you volunteered with. So for example, I have Sunday school teacher here and kind of basic bullet points as what we did. Another thing that I put is Stark County Thrive. So this is actually my service learning course. So always be looking for your service learning courses because that is volunteer experience. So I just put I was committed about 5 hours a week during the semester while maintaining a full course load. And then I also developed a website for the company that I could use for marketing promotion. So it's always good to keep your service learning course in mind. That way you can put it on a resume. One thing that I just kind of want to note out is dates. So I have my most present experience here at the top of the section, and then my past experience at the bottom. So you always kind of want to list them in chronological order depending on when you've actually done the experience. And then you also want to check the verb tenses with the actual dates. So this one I'm currently doing, so I put teach and organize. This one I've done in the past, so I did it in past tense, which is committed and developed. So you always want to keep that in mind when doing these experiences. And then activities is kind of the next section I have listed. So this can be for any athletes. So if you're on, let's say, Walsh University men's soccer, I've seen athletes kind of put bullet points that they've committed so many hours per week while maintaining a full course load, or they've put awards that they've accomplished during their athletic experience. You could also put anything like business club. So let's say you did that in the fall of 2017 to spring of 2018. So it's always good that you can always list that and create bullet points based on the stuff that you did within Business Club as well. And then your last section is just your skills section. So this is a section where you can put any softwares that you know. So I know Walsh uses Banner software, so you can list that. And then if you're fluent in any languages, so you can also list that. So fluent in Spanish, let's say. So this is just a section to put any of the skills that you've listed. I think it's important to know that there should be no high school experience on college resumes unless you're a freshman. So typically freshmen, they might not have as much experience during their college experience that they can list. So it's okay if freshmen have high school information sometimes, but in terms of sophomores, juniors, and seniors, you should really take that high school information off and kind of build on your college experience more. And I think it's also important to note that resume building is an art. So it's basically just being creative. There's so many different types of resumes that you can make. So, for example, if you want to look at this one, this is a completely different resume, but it's still professional, still very clean. So they kind of made it their own to kind of stick out amongst employers. So that's important to notice as well. And be creative. Just highlight on your experiences and see where you excel. So let's say you don't have a lot of honors and awards that you can list. Highlight on different experience. So let's say you have a ton of volunteer experience. Highlight on that and make sure employers know that. And be specific when creating these as well. So if you guys have any trouble, just come to us in the Career Center. You can always create an appointment with us, and you can always use the resources section on the Career Center website as well. Thank you.